2-1.
Hi everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the You can't start like this, Farley, doing dabs. Welcome everyone to this week's edition of the At Odds pod with me, Jake Ashton, Sam Farley dabbing his head off, and Sam Boswell. And I think he's dabbing because we've got an absolutely jam-packed edition of the pod this week.
I think he's dabbing because he's excited that instead of Jake, we've got Sid from Skins hosting the podcast.
Take me back, mate. Take me back to the Skins days.
Yeah, if you're watching, not watching on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, Jake's wearing what appears to be a tea cozy on his head.
It's cold up north.
Tea cozy on my head. You can't really see it as much because I've had to turn the brightness down on my Mac so low because the reflection of my glasses was just making me look absolutely stupid. So, yeah, lads, massive week this weekend, it feels. We've only got 2 more weekends of the Premier League left before the World Cup. Shall we start off speaking about the Premier League then with Saturday and Sunday? So we've got some big games on Sunday, but we'll go ahead first of all and speak about Saturday's fixtures. And Boz, you've got a card bet for us for Saturday's games.
Yeah, so I put him up before. It's been successful. Put him up before. It's not been. Last weekend, Adam Smith, I had him backed. I didn't mention him on the show, but I backed him. I do have other bets as well. It's not I'm trying to avoid it. But anyway, long story short, flash score, Toby got booked, got really excited, and then I had it taken away from me. But it just shows you how likely it is because he was giving the referee back chat. This week, his Bournemouth side faced Leeds. Off the back of that great win against Liverpool, which I think has saved Jesse March's job till at least after the International World Cup break. And I think he's going to be busy against Leeds. I think buoyed by that result, Leeds at home are going to come out, try and give Bournemouth plenty to do. I think he'll be busy. 3-1, given how often he gets booked, should have been booked last weekend and it wasn't. So I'm fairly happy to have a play at that on the Saturday games.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting game, really. It does already seem like a little bit of a 6-pointer when it comes to the relegation zone. Yeah, it looks good for Saturday's games. That game, Leeds-Bournemouth, actually, Farley, I've seen that you've tipped a bet for the same fixture.
Yep, simple one. Why did I not put the price in there? It's 5-6. Basically, over 1.5 Leeds goals. Now, I'm not super sure Leeds win this, but I do know they're going to score some goals. That's for sure. They have no problem scoring goals. Bournemouth, maybe not as bad as we were, particularly me, was saying at the start of the season, but Leeds will score a couple of goals here. I'm sure of that. In front of that crowd, yes, goals. 5-6, just under even money. I think that's the Vega price.
Yeah, fair. I've gone for our game on Saturday. It's City at home to Fulham, and I've gone for a little bit of a bet builder because obviously there's not going to be any sort of value in that game, really. But Mitrovic to have a shot on target and Kevin De Bruyne to get an assist is 5-2 as a bet builder. Mitrovic last weekend, admittedly, Fulham were playing Everton, but I think he had around 10 attempts, and Pickford made a stop for one of them. Before that game, he didn't score, obviously, in that game. It finished 0-0. But before that game, he scored in the last 3 games. And he is one of them players who can cause a City defensive line a bit of panic because obviously being a City fan, I get to see the games every week, and we do change our back line around quite a lot. And then De Bruyne assist is just standard, really. He came on as a sub on Wednesday night, got an assist after around 3 or 4 minutes of coming on, really, and it was just classic Kevin De Bruyne. And again, I think at 5-2, that double in a bet builder is just a little bit of value.
Jake, really quickly, you need to answer this question for everyone watching, especially with FPL in mind, and various bets on him to score 400 goals before the end of the season or whatever it is. What's going on with Haaland? Tell me Pep's latest. I saw something about he's going to have a late fitness test, but he's training. And I'm thinking, if he's training, and also, is he going to be the sort of thing where Pep's going to bring him on for 20 minutes or will he just not bother?
Well, last week, Boz, you asked me exactly the same question, and I said with my chest that Erling Haaland will start for City. And guess what? He didn't start. He didn't play. Pep said that he had ligament issues in his foot. But this weekend, I'm really not sure.
Do you need
I'd
to?
say
Do you need him to start?
we don't really need him to start now. But when it comes to your question around having him in your fantasy team, I don't see any value of getting rid of him, to be honest.
No, fair enough.
He's one of them players who, no matter what he's going to play, we've got Brentford next Saturday in the early kickoff. We've got Chelsea in the Carabao Cup at home on Wednesday, actually, which is an interesting game where he might think, I'm going to rest him for that game instead. So a couple of bigger games maybe coming up, but no, I don't think he starts for us on Saturday. Let's go over to Sunday, because the Premier League fixture list this weekend is split quite evenly. There's 5 games Saturday, 5 games Sunday. So the game to kick us off on Sunday, we've got a 12 o'clock kickoff randomly on the Sunday, and that is Chelsea against Arsenal, which is a massive, massive game when it comes to the Premier League table. Farley, let's get you to start us off with a booking bet for this one.
Yeah, so I can't pick this one result-wise. I actually don't think Arsenal win, probably.
What? Get out. Get out.
I don't know. I think Chelsea under Potter, there's something there, I think. But anyway, I'm going to go for a player who's only had one booking all
4
season.
last week to Brighton, Farley. What are you seeing that I'm not?
The game against United, they were good when he made his changes.
And then they still conceded.
I don't know. I'm on their I'm on their side for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, the bet I'm going for here, a guy who's only given up 1 yellow card all year, but it is Azpilicueta at 4-1. Put simply, there's a lot of injuries at the back there. He's going to be more than likely be on the right side of that back three. Ruben Loftus-Cheek will be the right wing back there. Not the best kind of support I'd suggest if I was the right side of centre back. And at 4-1, he's going to be coming up against Martinelli coming at him. Odegaard will be in and around at times. Jesus in and around. I just think that's a good booking for a guy whose legs are slowly going. He does like to give out to the ref a little bit as well. And I just think 4-1, it's a pretty big price in what's a very important game for Chelsea and Arsenal.
So, Boz, Farley's just said that he thinks Chelsea might actually get a result here. You've gone for draw or Arsenal, and you were staggered by Farley saying that Chelsea
it's a low price, my shout. I get it, but it's 1-2. Sometimes at the weekend, I like to have something that I really nail to the wall and have the courage of my convictions. And more or less every bet I have across the weekend gets doubled with it. For me, draw or Arsenal at 1-2 is a massive price. I don't think Arsenal asserts to win it, but I don't know how people can have faith in Chelsea at the moment. I think Chilwell obviously got injured midweek, which is a real shame for England's World Cup prospects because he is a good player and at least he would have bought some squad depth. But Cucurella has not convinced me since joining Chelsea at all. Defensively, I think they have concerns. Thiago Silva can only dig them out of so many holes at times. Arsenal are just, to me, there is a bit of an aura growing around Arsenal now. And whisper it quietly, I think until Arsenal Fan TV say it, I genuinely think they're contenders. I don't really see what's going to derail their season. I suppose they're going to possibly go deep in Europe and be busy in that. But do you not look at Arsenal in this sort of matchup? This is the game that will define whether they're contenders for the title or not. You know, they'll go away to Chelsea. Traditionally, Chelsea tend to do quite well against them, I know. But I just... the two teams, forget their history and just look at their recent performances. I find it really hard to make a case to be confident about Chelsea at all. And I think Arsenal will come away with a draw as a minimum. And at 1-2, they'll be in most of my bets this weekend.
I fully agree with Arsenal being title contenders. I think the downfall for them, and it's pretty gutting for them, is that there's a World Cup bang in the middle of the season. I think that's absolutely terrible for them. If there was no World Cup and they could just keep taking that momentum going and win game by game, then I'd be all over them. But that might just stop them. Now, my tip for this game, and I think looking at this, I know for a fact I've spent far too much time speaking to both of you because I feel like I've never tipped an unders in my life. But
here we go.
Under 2.5 goals, 10-11. We're starting to get to that point where I am watching games now and I'm seeing players almost shirking out of tackles and just easing off a little bit. And Chelsea again had a big injury midweek with Chilwell. Arsenal had a big injury last weekend with Saka. Is this going to be one of them games where 2 weeks before the international break, we're going to see a little bit of an ease off of the tension? Midday kickoff on a Sunday too. Under 2.5 goals is just, I think that is my bet for that game, to be honest.
That's interesting, Jake. I wondered if you were going to consider, when you started talking unders, I thought you might be mentioning cards, and I guess you could apply a similar rationale to that.
Yeah.
Do we think, just throwing an open question out there, do we think the next 2 weeks we are going to see proper lack of blood and thunder tackles, players starting to look after themselves? Do we think, for example, let's say, I'm just picking a game at random here, Spurs are 3-0 up on Liverpool with 15 minutes to go. We'll see Harry Kane getting whipped off, so he gets a little bit like. Do you think that's going to happen, guys?
No, but I would say, looking ahead to the Carabao Cup midweek, that's where I'd be thinking about backing unders or some upsets, because I think, like, if you're Harry Kane, do you want to play in that?
No,
probably not. I'd probably say I had a bit of a muscle strain or something and just skip it. Premier League games, I think you want to win. I think players will be up for it. But Carabao Cup, I just can't see anyone being that arsed.
This weekend's results will be interesting, definitely. We may see an upset or two, and then going into the Premier League weekend next weekend, there may even be bigger upsets going on. The other televised game on Super Sunday, or one of the other televised games, because we've got Southampton, Newcastle in the middle of Tottenham and Liverpool at 4:30, which is, again, a really big game, really, when it comes to top four race, potentially kicking on for the title. Boz, let's start with you for your picks for this game, because you've gone for two different players in the same market, which is an interesting market that you've brought to mind and Farley's attention in the past.
Yeah, so I thought this game is really hard to call result-wise. I wouldn't want to sit here and tell you I fancy X to beat Y, or that I kind of needed something that I thought on paper would probably be a 90-minute bet. So Harry Kane score or assist is just shy of even money. Mo Salah to score assist 8-11. Double pays around 3-1. Both have been such prominent figures for their teams, and I know both have perhaps had mixed seasons, it's fair to say. Mo Salah still remains, to me, the key for Liverpool, dragging them through games. And he's had to dig deep. Obviously, Mo's not off to the World Cup, is he? Egypt didn't make it.
No.
Kind of think people like him might have quite a focused mind on the Premier League in comparison. Now you'll say, well, you've picked Harry Kane, he's going to be thinking about England. I have. But obviously there's no Son for Spurs. So Kane, I think, is going to pick up a few more bits and pieces. I think he's going to have to play a bit more further forward than perhaps he had been doing. The way he drops off and plays balls through to Son, I don't think they're going to find that easy to replace with Richarlison. So I think Kane will be involved in the thick of it. The way Liverpool defend, he's going to get a sniff, isn't he? Let's be honest. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a penalty in this game for either side. And I just thought 3-1, the double, both players to rise to the occasion. And, you know, these are games that if Harry Kane wants to be seen as a world-class player, I expect him to be involved in. Funny, isn't it? He's going into a World Cup. This is a man that's won a golden boot for England. And I still have to convince my friends he's a good player sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very strange with Harry Kane. And I don't know whether it's because people don't like Spurs and he's not really won much individually beyond golden boots. He's not won trophies. It's really weird. Whereas, you know, no one would doubt Mo Salah's world class. Interesting comparison between the two. Hopefully a good game. But I've just seen Farley's bet and I'm quite interested in seeing how he's going to be strong on these guys. So I'll let him chime in now with his.
Yeah, I'm going back Liverpool at 9-6. Now, we're going to have a little talk about recent games.
9-6.
Sorry, it's not. Is it? What is it?
9-6. What these prices you come with us?
6-5. It's 6-5.
I think he's been looking at the American fractions too much.
6-5. Sorry, I'm not with it today. Last 6 games, they beat Man City. Fantastic performance. They beat West Ham. Did the job. They lost to Forest. Now, I maintain you play that game 100 times, they win 99 of them. Like the bad luck they had, the chances they missed, like it's just so on Liverpool. Then they beat Ajax. Admittedly, they lost to Leeds last week, weren't particularly good, and then they beat a very good Napoli side midweek. I still think there's so much in this team that they will be able to. I think they are on the decline. They do need some upheaval in summer, but I think there's enough about them to kind of really do well. I mean, you talk about their recent form. You look back at Spurs last 5. They lost to Man United in one of the worst performances I've seen from a top 6 club in years. They lost to Newcastle. No shame in that. They're a good club. They drew with Sporting. Absolutely awful display. They just about beat Bournemouth 3-2. And then they beat Marseille midweek. And frankly, they were absolutely shocking in the first half. And they probably did deserve to go through on the balance of it on the second half. But I think they need to count themselves lucky on that front. And I just look at them against teams who kind of really get at them and attack them. And I think they struggle a bit. So for me, Liverpool at 6-5, I think it's a really good bet. I really do. And like you say, they're missing a few players, Liverpool, but they've still got guys in the full positions who know where the back of the net is. So, yeah. You don't agree with me, Sam. I can see that face.
You know what it is? I've been burnt by Liverpool this season, and I don't think you can trust Spurs either, by the way. I'm not sat here, like, in a weird way, I kind of have been a bit one round to your logic that on paper they're the better team. You know, Spurs without Son, I know he's not been amazing this season, but he's certainly played well at times. It's a really tricky one, isn't it, to weigh up? And that's why I went for just kind of a 90-minute action bet rather than an outright. So I guess I'm fence sitting, which is a bit cowardly, but I'm not even back in the draw. So interesting. Jake, your case of the unders, I think, is catching, isn't it?
Oh, it's catching. I've got unders fever, boys. I've got unders fever. 11-10 for unders in this game. And to be honest with you, the reasoning behind this one is fairly similar to the Chelsea-Arsenal pick, really. It's going to be a case of, again, two sides where it could be that they're coming up to the World Cup and they're easing off a little bit. Now, what I will say is Conte ball is thrown into this thinking too. I think Conte will really, really, really play defensively in this game against that heavy metal Klopp style. 11-10. And if you do want to double it up, it's around 3-1 for both of them games, which is not a bad price, I don't think, to be honest. It's one that I probably will have a tenner on Sunday to get me through Super Sunday.
Get you through 2 really boring games. Cheers, Jake. But if you're right, I don't think any of us will be too impressed. Right. I suppose we better come to our favourite feature in the show, which is our bankers, bust and draws.
Yes.
If I can find our heading. There we go. So this week, I think this is the first time we've allowed ourselves to do this. I'm not sure if it was we were all running short on time. We've all gone with the world's most unoriginal banker.
Can I say something about that? You put yours in first, Boz, and I thought I'm not going to put this in. But I looked at everything else. None of them are bankers.
No, it's really
genuinely. This is the only game this weekend that I would be comfortable putting like my life on. Well, I wouldn't be comfortable doing that for any game, but you know what I mean. Like,
you're that certain at 1-8 that City get the win, you'd put your life on it. I know what you mean. It is the only outstanding. It probably shows actually City's strength that, you know, you could make them more or less a banker most weeks, and in a competitive Premier League, I think you make a fair point.
Like, I mean, all the other big teams, they're all playing each other. Liverpool playing Spurs, Arsenal playing Chelsea. I think Man United have got Villa. Not the easiest game. Like, there's tough games, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Jake, you'd be fairly confident, even if Haaland didn't start, that City get the job done at 1-8 against Fulham?
Yeah, listen, I'm usually the most pessimistic City fan there is, but even I can't be going against us at all anywhere in this game. I think we should just get the job done easily and get into the midweek against Chelsea.
No, fair enough. Right, let's move on to our bus, because we're all got 3 separate busts here, and I actually think all 3 are really good shouts. So it'd be interesting to hear how the cases are made. Farley, let's kick off with you. You think Leeds are too short against Bournemouth?
Yeah. Now, I think Leeds will probably beat Bournemouth, but if you're asking me to put Leeds to win at 4-5, odds on money. That's the best price you can get around. You must be absolutely barking mad. I really like Leeds. I really like Jesse Marsch, actually. But there's no way you can look at their form over the last month and put them on as an below evens shot. It's just, that would be madness for me. So they have to be the bust for me.
No, fair enough. My bust. West Ham play my beloved Crystal Palace. And West Ham, listen, I know perhaps on paper their season hasn't gone as well in terms of the league, but I think they're competing, trying to do Europa League as well, which is so hard. And we saw, obviously, last night, I think Moyes really deserves a lot of credit for what he's achieved there. But they're odds on against Palace, who've had the week to prepare for the game. They've only got to go across London Palace. It's not like there's any travel involved. I think player-wise, Wilfried Zaha for me, I think he's 100 to 30 to score any time, which I quite like the look of in this game. We were arguably a bit lucky against Southampton last week. They certainly had their moments, but we ground out the result. And it was much needed, actually. So I think Palace can really kick on here. And I just think West Ham are vulnerable at that price. But I wouldn't want to back them. Jake, I'm really interested to see your rationale behind Newcastle being...
Yeah, mine may be a bit stupid, really, because obviously Newcastle... 8 games unbeaten in the Premier League now. But going away to Southampton at St. Mary's, who admittedly are sitting 17th place, may sound like a straightforward win for Newcastle, but I feel that Southampton can get a result here. I think it may be a case more that Newcastle haven't turned up on the day, to be honest. There's been a little rumour here and there that Callum Wilson may be out of this game. He's been feeling a bit fatigued in the last few days, according to Eddie Howe, which may be England World Cup squad.
Go to a World Cup, mate. He's got to get on the pitch and keep scoring. Like I saw him back himself on a podcast to get in. Basically, he's behind Harry Kane.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
Christ.
But he's got to. I don't want to hear you fatigue, mate. Like start the game, score a goal, then come off. Like that.
That's the thing. Is it going to be a case of he's feeling a bit run down, apparently? He's not feeling up for it too much. He's going to be a miss for them. If he doesn't start, he will be a miss. I know that obviously they've got Joe Linton, who's been incredible. Almiron, who should get the Player of the Month in the Premier League this month for me. They've got an unbelievable team at the minute. But if Callum Wilson doesn't play, who comes in? Chris Wood.
He's not the same player, is he? That's the way to look at that. No, good.
That's why the short price. Southampton are 3-1 to win this game too. It may even be that. So, yeah.
So our draws. We've got 3 different draws, which is always good. Different perspectives. I've picked out Everton. Sorry, who host Leicester as a draw. I think this will be boring. I think this game will be so boring. I know Everton turned into prime Brazil against Crystal Palace the other week. They then obviously came and got a clean sheet against Fulham. I'm expecting this to be Connor Cody, man of the match kind of thing. Balls plucked out the air. Leicester would bite their hand off for a point. I don't think Everton would think a point's a bad result either. It's going to be negative, horrible football, and I will avoid this game at all costs. It's going to be a draw. Farley, who do you like for a draw this week?
Villa Man United. This game, it just... FA Cup weekend, obviously, this screams, 4th round of the FA Cup. Draw goes to replay. But we're obviously not in the FA Cup, so it's just going to be a poor draw.
You're getting too excited thinking about the FA Cup, which is coming up in a minute. We'll let you talk giant killing, and someone's got a giant killing 14-1 shot in there, so we will talk about that in a minute. Jake, we're going back to the Chelsea Arsenal game. Oh, we are littering with mistakes this afternoon, lads. Come on. Chelsea Arsenal, you're thinking a draw. Just give us a quick recap on why.
I think Farley was saying that Chelsea may get a result here. I just think this game, if I was to pick a result in it, it'd be a draw. I think both sides, Arsenal are doing well. Chelsea, admittedly, rubbish in the last few weeks. But Chelsea at home, Stamford Bridge, I think they can get a result against Arsenal. And a draw is written all over it for this early kickoff.
Right. Fair enough. Well, all that remains then is to mention the fact that it is FA Cup. Which round are we talking this weekend, boys?
First round, baby.
First round,
FA Cup first round. Now, those of you who know me know I don't know too much about the lower leagues, and I tend to stick to the Championship and then possibly delve into League One and League Two on an occasion. I am leaving the FA Cup well alone. Good news is these boys aren't, and they've got bets for you. So, Sam, you can kick me off here. What's your FA Cup tip?
Yeah, put simply, now I've been quite good at not backing my own team this season, Plymouth Argyle, but we will win on the road at Grimsby this weekend. 11 to 10. I just think it's a fantastic price for a team. Argyle in great form. The manager has spoken about the FA Cup, about what it did for our team last year. We had a good run in it. Got a lot of money that helped sort of keep the club going as well. So it's something that he's aware of that is big for us. We've got a lot of players. Well, we don't have a lot of players, but we've got 3 strikers, and we like to rotate them round, give them all games, keep them all fresh. I just think it's a great price. Over evens against a team in League Two, a 13th in League Two. Yeah, sign me up. Really good price.
No, fair enough. I don't mind your reasoning, but this is a much sexier bet from Jake, who's going for the underdog bet, which is what we love in the FA Cup. Jake, what's the story? Come on, where are we heading?
This bet may be sexy, Boz, but it's stupid too. So think of it like that. Torquay are bottom of the National League. Derby County, League One, 7th in the table. Torquay, earlier this week, midweek, won 6-1 at home to Aldershot, who are around 7 places above them in the league. Derby, the last few games, they've dropped points. I think in the last 4, they've lost 1, drawn 2, won 1. 14-1 in the FA Cup. Torquay at home. It's going to be televised. I know a lot of the games are televised on like BBC Red Button and things like that. There's going to be a lot of Torquay fans in there. Looking at the actual fixture list this weekend, I've tried to look at giant killings throughout because FA Cup first round, we do have a lot of giant killings usually. And odds-wise, there's not really that mad odds that's going around. Like I've tried to look at, I think Kings Lynn, for example, are playing Doncaster, and they're only like 12-5 to win or something daft like that. So, but Torquay 14-1 to beat Derby County, and again, Paul Wands took over Derby. There's been a few signs that they might not have been as good as they were under Rossini at first, but they are starting to look like they're kicking on a little bit now. But I just can't ignore the price at 14-1. It's one of them bets where I'm not going to have my mortgage on it, no chance. I will have a bet on it. I'll have like £2 on it this Sunday, I think, and a stinky Sunday acca of FA Cup games and Premier League games all tied into one. I might put that in there just for a big price too. But I just can't ignore 14-1 in an FA Cup game where anything can happen in the 90 minutes, as we've seen so many times before, Sam.
I suppose FA Cup as well, there is different chairmen have different pressures, you know.
Yeah.
For me, Derby are facing, we must get promoted. Torquay, if I'm the chairman of Torquay, I'm thinking we must get a replay. We must try and get in the hat. If we can get anywhere near that precious third round and get Man United away, it's the payday, isn't it? It's quite funny. I once spoke to somebody that had owned a lower league football club, and he was a very interesting chap. And he said people had no idea how valuable the FA Cup was to those level of teams. He said, you get a top 6 Premier League team at home. He said, you don't want to win the game. You want to draw. You then get half the replay money or whatever it works out as. He said that's what he was always hoping for, the dream of getting those big teams. And he said it can pay the bills for 6 months. It really is that sort of state of affairs. So interesting, very interesting. Right, well, Jake's had his passport confiscated this week. I don't like flying too much as it is. So, Farley, over to you for foreign footy, and you're the only man standing here. So, where are we going?
Look, last week I gave a tip overs in the Austrian Bundesliga. Of course, it came in. Of course, it did. So I'm back, but I've got a double this time. First up, WSG Swarovski Tirol versus Austria Vienna in the Austrian Bundesliga. We're going over 2.5. These guys are goal merchants. Then we're getting a quick little trip over to the Czech Republic. And we're going to go Slavia Prague and Baník Ostrava over 2.5 again. This double pays 1.3 to 1. And I tell you what, I am very confident.
I'm quite glad you're very invested in it, Farley. Fair play for doing your homework. There's stats to back it up. This isn't some degenerate idiot. You have looked at the numbers, so I have
looked at the numbers, and I would actually have read them out. But to be absolutely honest with you, I don't have them to hand now. But I think last week I mentioned Adam Choi's website, and that's where I kind of did my research for this. And honestly, I can't recommend it enough. If you're into overs, unders, both teams to score, corners even, they have some absolutely brilliant stats on there. So get looking and use that to inform your bets.
No, that's
I
a
like
really
it.
good shout.
I like that a lot. Boz, do you want to take us into your racing selections for this weekend and maybe in future too? Anything you fancy?
Yeah, let's talk racing. So first of all, I need that passport back out the drawer because we're going to go to America for the Breeders' Cup. Yeehaw!
Yes.
Kind of just to give you a quick overview, Breeders' Cup is probably the closest thing to Royal Ascot we have in flat racing outside of the UK. You'll get an awful lot of European horses that are coming towards the end of their season head out. It actually goes to different venues. So the one that most people will recognise is Santa Anita, which has the amazing mountains in the backdrop. This year we're in Keeneland, which is still a good venue, pretty popular. Breeders' Cup. So it's the flat racing, no jumps. This is kind of really the last chance you're going to see some of the superstars. ITV are covering this really well as well, guys. On Saturday, the coverage for domestic racing starts around lunchtime. Then ITV are going through an ITV4 to about 10 o'clock at night. And bear in mind, the Breeders' Cup kicks off from 3:50 in the afternoon. They've got something like 10 televised races. Fantastic coverage, free to air. Brilliant stuff. The 4:29 is the first race I'm going to mention, which is the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Loads of Europeans in here. We have a 7-4 favourite, Golden Pal, who I really, really like. He's flopped a little bit on the 3 starts when Wesley Ward, the American trainers, brought him to the UK. But I don't think he's ever lost a race in North America on turf. He can be a tad slow out the gate. He can't get away with that today, but they'll be well aware of that issue. He's drawn in 8, which will be fine. Next in the market is 5-2 Highland Princess, who's had a fantastic season for John Quinn. I just worry that she's gone to the well quite a few times. She's had to travel into the backyard of the States. I do think that's a little bit of a challenge for any European going over there. And then you tend to win the field. So it does look a bit of a match race, but Golden Power at 7-4 to me is a big price there. One I won't be tipping because it's just too short, but you should stay up and watch, is in the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's a horse called Fight Line, who just looks the next big thing. This horse is pretty special. You'll see why if you watch any of his replays. 5 from 5, just to be a sensational animal. That covers off your flat rating. The actual flat season does finish on turf at Doncaster this weekend. Not so much of a card I want to get involved in there, but jumps racing goes up a notch. We've got the Paddy Power meeting coming up at Cheltenham very soon. The rain's getting into the ground. We're starting to see the better horses. And Down Royal hosts a 2-day card, which Gordon Elliott traditionally does very well in. The 232 is the Ladbrokes Champion Chase race. It's a Grade 1 race. Galvin is entered and your even money favourite. Galvin won recently. Gordon Elliott said after that run he'd need it. Even money, I think, is very fair. The race itself, his competitors, he takes on his stablemate Conflated, who doesn't tend to run that well first time out. This is his first start for over 200 days. He's entitled to come on for that. Kenboy is a 10-year-old now, and he hasn't won for ages. I think Spark might be gone there. Envoy Alan was the next big thing and now seems to not be able to cope with racing. It's really sad. Fingers crossed he bounces back. And Beacon Edge rounds off the field. So for me, 2 shorties there, Golden Pal and Galvin. I'll have the double up. Fingers crossed. And do enjoy the action. Loads to watch. Proper fireworks in the racing world on November the 5th.
Boz, I've got a challenge for you for next week. I want you to give me a tip for the King George on Boxing Day.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. Just a little update. You remember I was very enthused about the Willie Mullins price last week, lads. I hope you got involved because the 14s is now 8s. So someone else agrees with us. Kind of a bit of a good news, bad news. We've beaten the market. The bad news, Mullins didn't put as many horses in the early entries for Cheltenham as I'd have liked for the Paddy Power meeting. He has got one in the Greatwood Hurdle, which is a very valuable race. And he did put 4, I think it is, in the Coral Gold Cup at Newbury. So I think we're on to a runner, maybe not as good, but I still think we've beaten the price and double figures was wrong. So it'll give us some interest. If you can pick up either of those, we'll start getting a little bit excited. But Farley, you want to take us stateside, don't you, for a bit of NFL?
Yep. We're recording this on a Friday evening, so fortunately there are some early NFL lines out for anytime touchdown scorers. So I'm just going to give you one that I think offers some really good value, and that is Denzel Mims of the New York Jets to score against the Bills. Now, firstly, Bills good defense, and I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen, but the odds of him scoring are 15-2, so a little over 7-1, and he looked really promising when he came out of college a couple of years back, and it hasn't quite worked. However, the last few weeks, it seems like they're trying to get him in there. The coaches have talked about him playing more. And last week, he hauled in 2 catches for 76 yards. Really kind of good performance, actually, against the Patriots. And they're going to try and use him more. So I think even though they're against a good Bills defense, you're getting over 7-1 the guy who performed well last week, who the coaches have spoken about wanting to get the ball more. That, to me, is just one of those bets that you just need to have a kind of little speculative punt on. Don't go mad, but, whack a $5 on there potentially, and you might have a good return out of it.
Nice. I like that. We've got a little bet for the NFL this weekend, and that's good to see.
Jake, I've seen what you're tipping up here.
Yes. Let's get straight into it, because this week I am tipping the return of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And for some reason, I think it might be because they're back in the jungle, but it seems a big one this year. There's obviously a lot of talk around it with Matt Hancock going in. I'll reserve and save any sort of opinion on Matt Hancock out of the podcast. Let's keep it non-political, no politics, please. I'm just going to straight up throw a little tip out there just for something that I think is too big a price, and that is Sue Cleaver to win I'm a Celebrity this year. Now, Sue Cleaver, you may think, who's Sue Cleaver? Eileen Grimshaw from Coronation Street. Now, it may be because I'm a Northern boy and we all watch Corrie here every night, but I just think 25-1 is a big price for a person who a lot of people will recognize and feel like they know. She's going to be a mother figure in the camp, and the nation will surely warm to her. And again, 25-1 in a market which seems fairly open, to be honest. Seems like a big price. Now, what I have also seen is a couple of bet build or requester bets for this, and they surround England or former England Lioness Jill Scott, who is 6-1 to win outright. But there's a couple of little boosts that I like the look of. Now, first of all, you've got Jill Scott to win I'm a Celebrity and England men's to win the World Cup, and that is 66-1, which is a massive price. Obviously, England, they've been drifting every week lately because squad are starting to get injuries. We've obviously not looked good in any sort of internationals recently. But 66-1 for the double is big. If you do want to double up Jill Scott to win I'm a Celebrity with Farley's previous tip of Beth Mead to win Sports Personality of the Year, you can get that at 8-1 as a double, which again is a decent price. It's something where Beth Mead should really win the Sports Personality now, you'd think. And it's getting a bit more value on that if you like that too.
Quick
again,
question,
I'm looking at the mark. Go for it.
Quick question. Your I'm a Celebrity stuff.
Yes.
How much do you factor in who watches and who votes? Because I always think that's sometimes something that I think gets really missed. Like who watches and who actually votes. Because I'm a Celebrity, you still have to call up, right? It's not like Strictly that's now free, and that's why Arsenal fans are rigging it with Tony Adams.
You can still get free votes through the app, but you can call in too, because obviously they have the numbers on the back of the shirts and stuff. That actually does form part of the reason why I've tipped Sue Cleaver at 25-1, because we have seen in past years soap stars winning the show. I mean, last year alone, we saw a winner from Emmerdale last year Jacqueline Josser won it like 3 years ago from EastEnders. I think we've seen other EastEnders stars winning it too. Joe Swash, was he in EastEnders?
Yeah, he was in
Yeah.
EastEnders.
Yeah. So
also, Jake, let's be honest, the likes of Olivia Atwood, I know she has done some shows since Love Island, which have made her popular with women, but she is quite. I always think pretty girls might struggle to get the votes of female housewives. You want someone that you feel more comfortable with, and I do think the mother figure thing's a really good angle. The thing that is going to be interesting though is people love her as Eileen Grimshaw, but she's playing a role. Yeah. And I sometimes think there's a bit of a punt here that she's as nice and endearing as that on character. Yeah. Like, I think Chris Moyles will really struggle in this, and he's a fairly short price. I don't think you can keep up your persona for a 3-hour radio show. I think it's maybe a little bit hyped or an act. Once you're in that jungle, I had to write a piece for Harry Redknapp earlier this week, and he was explaining how you have to go in and be yourself. Like, you can't act. And I think he sort of was maybe alluding to in the past, people have gone in and tried to be something they're not or form something like that. And yeah, it's quite interesting. So hopefully she has that friendly, bubbly northerner in her. I definitely think she's priced for run. Really quickly, Jake, I want to ask you this. Do you think, I read somewhere, and I can't remember the source, Tony Adams was getting more votes than like half the contestants put together on Strictly because it's free to vote now, and Arsenal fans, like they do with everything, are reading it.
I think there's a massive chance of that, and BBC themselves have never ever released the voting figures from Strictly, which is crazy, really, because a lot of these shows you always see voting figures after the show ended, but BBC have never done that. It could well be that it is Arsenal fans who are boosting him to win the show. I mean, in all honesty, Boz, he has actually looked a lot better in recent weeks. Like, to be fair to him, he looks like a decent dancer now. But 18-1 he is to win. He was 100-1 at one point, Boz.
You can get 25-1 out there.
25-1 you can get to. So
and this is going to sound, this is quite a can of worms to open.
Yeah.
I personally think sometimes the best dancers don't win Strictly. I still think there's a bit of a bias. I know some of the audience won't enjoy things like same-sex couples, or we've seen it before where there's a bit of a surprise that someone of a BAME background is in the bottom when they're really good. It definitely feels like there's unconscious or conscious bias that takes place in these shows. And I don't know, you've got Hamza, who's a very short price. Good story, to be fair to him. But I've had a fiver on Tony Adams, Jake. So I'm with the Arsenal poll riggers.
Yeah, I don't blame you either. For the price of 25-1 is perfect. And again, like you said, could it be Arsenal fans who are just fully backing him, getting the free votes in there and doing it like you say? How many times have we seen Arsenal win a poll, which is absolutely just...
Well, he's getting my free votes this weekend because I'm now invested. So that's how it works. If everyone watching and everyone tells their friends does the same thing, we'll land Tony Adams will pay for Christmas.
I love that. Let's go over now to Twitter queues. And we've had one question this week from Tom Rye, who's asked us for picks to win Championship, League One and League Two based on the starts of the season that we've seen so far. Now, before we go through with that, I've actually looked at what we tipped in episode 1 of the At Odds pod and seen if there's anything that looks good or anything that looks bad. Now, looking at it first of all from the Championship, Farley, we'll go with yours first of all. You had Reading to go down at 2-1.
They're down in 11th now.
It could still happen. I know that you have been tipping Reading to get beaten in shows in the past, and you've gone on and really put it in your face a bit, haven't they? And gone on and won.
They started brilliantly, but they have fallen off a bit, which is good news because I do have money on that myself.
Boz had Middlesbrough to win at 11-1. They sit in 19th in the table.
Yeah, this is an unmitigated disaster, Jake. Middlesbrough in the past have burned me, and this is it now. I won't tip them for anything ever going forward. If I had to try and make a replacement tip, if you like, I'm not going to put Burnley up when they're clear. I must say, I think QPR would be my play each way or to make the top 6, which will probably be a very short price now. They sit in 4th, and they obviously hung on to their manager, didn't they, when there was interest? Yeah. And I think the fact that he has done that will ensure he sticks around. And I hope in January the board there reward his loyalty with a bit of cash, because I really rate that. And that is such a big factor in that league of managers chopping and changing. If you can keep your manager, you've got half a chance. And I've got a lot of time for QPR. And from the limited action I've seen in the Championship, they've been quite entertaining to watch. So that's my pin.
Yeah, I think I was going to say exactly the same, which is a bit mad, really. I was going to have QPR at the same price because Michael Beale, he is the main reason for it, really. I think, like you say, them keeping him is absolutely massive. And I watched an interview with Emiliano Martinez, the Villa keeper, who said that Beale was the guy who did all the coaching, did all the training, did everything. And that's probably formed part of the reason why Steven Gerrard's left now, to be honest. But he's clearly a well-thought-of manager. And again, so the odds you can get on them, 22s, 25s in some places. Big price on QPR. And I'm not going to gloat about Burnley to be promoted at 4-1 because I know you were both like, oh, you're just doing it because of company. That was part of the reason, let's be honest. So I'm not going to try and big it up. League One, Farley, you was the only ones who had a tip in League One, and it was Cheltenham to go down. And I think that's looking quite good, to be honest, at 2-1. I don't think that's looking too bad a price.
Yeah, they're 4 points out the relegation zone. They put a few wins at the start of the season. They looked so bad, but they have put some wins together.
Is there anything in League One now? Like Tom asked picks to win based on the start of the season. So the start of the season that you've seen so far, I know your Argyle have looked absolutely superb. Is there anything that looks good for you in the League One market at all?
If I had to have a bet, as much as I think we'll get playoffs now, I still think there's a lot of football to be played, and we have a smaller team, smaller budget than everyone else at the top there. I'd still say Sheffield Wednesday are the team to beat, despite being 7 points behind us in the league. So I'd say Sheffield Wednesday, to be honest.
Fair.
I've got an interesting bet for you, Jake, in League One. Yeah. So do you ever believe in the whole teams that kind of end up bottling it and then have to do the playoffs and then they actually do manage to come good? I know people in their heads always assume it's that team that creep in and have the momentum and it's a lottery and all that. But Ipswich, for me, are a good side. But they showed the other week, I don't know if anyone saw the result at Charlton, which I think ended 4-4. Charlton managed to score like 2. It was absolutely bananas in injury time. Now, Ipswich are clearly a good side. They're 11-1 to win the playoffs. There's one bookmaker that's got this price, which is quite an interesting market, isn't it, when you think about it? Because you're probably getting a bigger price about Ipswich to win the playoffs. Plymouth, by the way, are 10-1 to win the playoffs. Derby 8, Bolton 13-2, Portsmouth 6. But teams that are going to end up in there are, at the moment on paper, are priced much shorter. But I could see Ipswich quite easily ending up in that little patch. And at 11-1, if I had to have a bet on League One now, that's the only thing that stands out. Because if they get in the playoffs, they won't be 11-1 to win it.
No, they won't. Not a chance. And again, it is decent value. I think, like you say, in that market where it can be hard to find value that looks appealing, 11-1 for them to win the playoffs is good if they do drop off.
And you've got Peterborough and Sheffield Wednesday close enough that I think they'll give them a bit of a spook. So, yeah, I think they're there. Plymouth, I hope, don't wobble for Farley's sake. But yeah, that was just quite an interesting market. I hadn't seen that before, and I thought double figure price, that'll do me.
League Two.
One thing I want to say about League One, and I'm trying to look up the odds as I say this. Milton Keynes Dons genuinely so bad. One of the worst teams I've seen, and you get best price of 5-2 on them to go down. And from what I've seen, they're going to have a long season. I think they're going down. I think they're absolutely dreadful. Worst team we've played by a country mile, I'd say, this year. So
that is
that'd be my
massive shout from you. League Two quickly. I've give Boz stick for his Borough to win bet. I had Bradford to win the league at 7-1, and they're currently 12 points off the top, I think. So still in 7th place. They're still in and around. again, with these lower leagues, we've always seen that teams can. No, I'm not even going to try and make up some sort of story that Bradford are going to do it. They're not going to do it, let's be honest. Mansfield to get promoted. Farley Crawley to get promoted at 15-2 is...
Yeah, my thinking with Mansfield, I think they're a good, reasonably good team. I still think they've got a chance of kind of working their way up there and getting promoted. My Crawley shout was purely based on having a bit of investment there, and getting a relatively acclaimed young manager in. But it seems like it's a total basket case at that club. So yeah, that money's down the drain. They're definitely
at
not
least
going
the guy that owns them, Farley's got a great TikTok account out of it, which is what he seems to kind of be relishing.
Thing, isn't it?
I think he thinks he's Ryan Reynolds kind of thing. And, here's me having a pie with the fans. And he sort of just think, oh, yeah, just buy a centre-back. Like, just, anyway.
I still think Swindon, and I've got some Swindon mates, so it really pains me to say this because I want them to stay down where they belong. Yeah. But Swindon, they're 9 points off. They started the season so badly. I do think they're like a reasonable team. I think out of all those teams ahead of them, Orient, Stevenage, Northampton, Barrow, they can absolutely get that place rocking. And I think they're always quite tough to beat, Swindon. So, yeah, I think Swindon would probably be my outside shot to get promotion now in League Two.
Nice. And you can get that at around 3-1. So I think that wraps up the question for you there, Tom. If any other questions you do have, message us on Twitter and we'll answer it next week. And that goes for everyone. Any questions you have, message us on all our social platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
Give us a bit of stick for when we put up dreadful tips, but give us a bit of praise when we've got up some good ones. That's all we ask for.
Exactly, Boz. Now, let's wrap up then. Weekend treble time. Who wants to go first? Who thinks that their bet is not going to get beat this weekend? Who wants to take it away?
Mine's not getting beat.
Oh, confident. All right, go on.
We shouldn't have odds on, should it?
Hey.
Oh, got a big man. Yeah, it's 5-6. Thought I'd just go for something quite simple here. Blackburn to beat Huddersfield. I mean, Blackburn, second in the league, 33 points, scoring a reasonable amount of goals against Huddersfield, who they're just not scoring that many, like goal a game, conceding a lot, 15 points. I just think you get a 5-6, second place versus bottom. You can't really argue with that. But as we all know, the Championship is a risky league, isn't it? But I still think this is the banker of the week.
Right, fair enough. I'm going to go even shorter, actually. KDB assist, 8-11 is my bet. De Bruyne has actually started to play even better than I've seen him in recent seasons, to be honest, and he looks class. I was going to do KDB score or assist, but that was too short. It was like 1-3. But him to get an assist is just 8-11 is just a great price, I think. And that is going to be a lock-in for me this week. Boz, wrap us up. You know what? You're ballsy this week because you've gone for something.
My back's hurting from carrying the value in the treble, lad.
He's carrying the value for us. But
I'm going to have to see a chiropractor after this. Right. Golden Pal, I've talked about him. If he pings the lids, he just wins at the Breeders' Cup. Around 4:30, you'll be able to watch that on Saturday. So hopefully all these bets will be landing in a similar sort of time frame. We'll get the Championship ticked off and KDB will have had an assist and we'll land it. But around 7-1 for the treble. So it's not bad, is it? I mean, listen, putting a horse in there is always a bit of a risk. If you want to go safer, take Golden Pal out and put Galvin in at even money. Take it down a bit in the price. But either of those two for me are good bets this weekend. If you like a favourite, that's who I'm picking.
Nice. Before we wrap up, anything else you two lads want to talk about this week? Is there anything that's on your mind in terms of the World Cup or...
I tell you what, I'm going to tell you the worst price I've seen, Jake, this week, and don't touch it with a barge pole. It was Matt Hancock to do every Bush Tucker trial, 6-4. First of all, the lad's got some sort of health condition that's been reported that means he won't necessarily be able to do some of them. I imagine it could be fear of the public voting for him every single time. And also the producers will never allow it, and it would require him to go through the length of the show, which I don't think would happen. So that's my watch out for prices like that are there to get you. They're just
It is a bad bet. It is a bad bet. You could even have an even worse bet than that, and that was Hancock to win I'm a Celebrity and then become next Prime Minister at 250 to 1. So
it's missing 6 zeros for me, that one.
Exactly. That would be more than Leicester winning the league, that. Right. So I think that about wraps us up, really, lads. Again, nothing else for us to speak about this week. Any questions you do have, as we just said, message us. Let us know anything that you want to talk about with us. It could be betting related. It could be anything related. Let's be honest. Farley will chat about anything. He will. So I think that about wraps us up, lads. Anything else you want to add?
I just hope we have a winner so you two can afford to put the lights on next week. That's what's worrying me at the moment. Fingers crossed, if you've backed Golden Pal, we can put 50p in your electric meters. And Jake, we can get the heating on so you don't have to wear that hat for those on Spotify.
Fingers crossed, lads. Fingers crossed. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us. See you later.
Best of luck.
Cheerio.